I attended a church recently, and my experience with the church is what I'm going to share in this video as part of my Sunday sermon. When I got to the church, it was an amazing service. Everything was beautiful, lovely, amazing Christian community. When it got to the time for first timers, I like to always respect that for many reasons, but I will not tell you in this video. So when it got to first timers, I stood up, so they would know I'm a first timer in that assembly. I stood up, and after service, they called us to the section where they had prepared for first timers, to have that little chat and introduce the church to us, you know. When they were talking us through the welcome pack that they gave us, there was a particular card in that pack that you are supposed to fill in your details and submit to the church. If you have prayer requests too, you were very, very much encouraged to indicate the same. I observed something that in that card which they gave to us, there was a column where you were supposed to tick to say, I am giving them the authorization to store and process my data, and even contact me should they want to. They ensured that everyone ticked that column and submitted to them. They were very polite, yet it was compulsory that everybody ticked that column, that they were granting the church permission, to store their data and contact them. It was somewhat strange, but it was nice. I just realized in that moment that these people were not just doing service, they were not just being Christian. They were also doing the best they could to be compliant with the rules of the land. They were following digital regulation. Sometimes people go to places and then they come back with all manner of stories. I didn't give them this, I didn't give them that. But this church was taking steps ahead to forestall any possible litigation that could come in the future. For example, someone coming to say, I gave you my data, but I didn't say you should call me, or I gave you my data, you didn't tell me how you were going to process it. But this church was way ahead. They even have a sign somewhere indicating that images captured within the premises will be used by the church. Isn't that interesting? So these people understand what data protection and privacy, what it means. So you were not just come as you are, you were also complying with the regulation. When I saw this, what came to my mind was this scripture that says, be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. Sometimes as Christians, the persecution that we encounter, the things we suffer, is tied to our refusal to follow certain regulations, to read and understand what the climate is, what government rules and regulations are, what the current guideline is supposed to be. So when we are being charged for, offenses, innocent offenses, we are quick to say, oh, we are being persecuted because of our faith. We are facing this because I'm a Christian. That's why I'm facing this persecution. They don't like the church. They don't. Sometimes, if you are patient to understand the rules, if you are patient to understand the regulation, if you are patient to understand the guidelines in the industry or in the environment where you play, many of the things that amount to persecution would not be there in the first place. Many of the issues you have to deal with, let's even say it's a building requirement that you didn't follow, or whatever it is, that law, that regulation you didn't follow is actually a disobedience on your path. But because you are doing church, you think the government, the authorities should overlook it. And when they refuse to, you call it persecution. It was an interesting thing for me to see. Just decided to come share it with you. Happy Sunday, guys. Hope you had a nice service.